How are you guys doing? Today is Friday, December 31st, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for the final daily episode of the 2021 year, I'm going to review the elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Thursday, December 30th, and of course, just to take a quick step back and look at where we are in the calendar year with it being over. The NFL season has 2 more weeks left in its regular season as teams are still trying to figure out where they are. In terms of college football, we are still in the midst of bowl games as the college football semifinal will be played today, as the amount of teams that will be competing for the national championship will drop from 4 to 2 by this time tomorrow. And taking a look at what's going on with basketball, we are in the midst of the college and the NBA seasons. I think we still have ways to go till we reach the halfway point for both. And because we are at the end of the 2021 calendar year, we are at the exact midpoint of the 2021-22 soccer season. So with that said, I'm going to jump first into what went down in college football yesterday, starting with the only bowl game that actually had ranked opponents. The Atlanta Chick-Fil-a Peach Bowl would feature the 10th ranked Michigan State Spartans and the 12th ranked Pittsburgh Panthers. And in this matchup, Michigan State would end up beating Pitt 31-21, as Michigan State outscored Pitt 21-7 in the second half after Pitt outscored Michigan State 14-10 in the first half. And then, of course, taking a look at how this matchup fared, the Pittsburgh Panthers, the ACC champs, on the losing end of this matchup were led by their starting quarterback Davis Beville, who came in for their Heisman candidate starting quarterback, of course, after he got hurt. Beville finished throwing for 149 yards. He threw for a touchdown and an interception as well. The Pitt's leading receiver was Jordan Addison. He had 7 receptions for 114 yards on the day. Phil Campbell III finished with 12 tackles total as he led the team, and Eric Hallett also finished with 10. Brandon Hill finished with the team's lone interception. And on the winning end of this matchup, the 10th ranked Michigan State Spartans were led in scoring by their starting quarterback Peyton Thorne. Thorne would throw for 354 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He also ran for 4 yards. That's 358 total yards. Their leading receiver, Jalen Naylor, had 6 receptions for 108 yards. Their second leading receiver, Jaden Reed, had 6 receptions for 80 yards, and he had 2 receiving touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Cal Halliday led Michigan State in tackles. He had 11. Jacob Slade would finish with 6 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Brandon Wright had 4 tackles as he had a sack and a half. Cal Halliday, in addition to having the team's most team's most tackles, he would also finish with a 78-yard pick six that would win Michigan the game. With this win, the 10th ranked Michigan State Spartans are now 11-2 as they finish their season as one of 3 teams in the Big Ten that have that would finish their season with 2 losses. And taking a look now at the losing end of this matchup, the 12th ranked Pitt Panthers out of the ACC are now 11-3 with this loss. Of course, now taking a look at the next bowl game that took place, looking at at Duke's Mayo Bowl, the unranked North Carolina Tar Heels would face off against the unranked South Carolina Gamecocks. South Carolina would end up beating North Carolina 38-21. South Carolina outscored North Carolina 25-13 before outscoring the Tar Heels again 13-8 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the unranked Tar Heels were led by their starting quarterback Sam Howell. He threw for 205 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 3 yards. That's 208 total yards of offense. North Carolina's leading rusher was British Brooks. He had 5 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Their leading tackler on the defensive end was Cedric Gray, as he had 13 tackles and a sack. Cameron Kelly had 12 tackles, and Power Eccles would finish with 10. The player with the lone interception would end up being Caleb Hood. On the winning end of this matchup, the Gamecocks were led by their starting quarterback, Dick Carrion Joyner. He would end up completing all of 9 of his passes as he threw for 160 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 64 yards. That's 224 total yards of offense. South Carolina's leading rusher was Kevin Harris. He had 31 carries on the ground for 182 yards and a touchdown. South Carolina's leading receiver was Jaheim Bell, as he had 5 receptions for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side, R.J. Roderick and Jalen Foster would tie for the team high in tackles as they each had 6. Jordan Strachan would finish with 3 tackles as he finished with a sack and a half. With this win, the unranked South Carolina Gamecocks of the SEC will finish with a 7-6 record. With this loss, the unranked 6-7 North Carolina Tar Heels out of the ACC right now have a 6-7 record for the time being. With that said, of course, now looking out to the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl, the unranked Tennessee Volunteers would face off against the unranked Purdue Boilermakers. Purdue would go on to beat Tennessee, especially while both teams are ranked, and Purdue would go on to win this particular matchup 48-45 as Purdue outscored Tennessee 23-21 in the first half. Tennessee would outscore Purdue 24-22 in the second half, and once the matchup would end up going into overtime, Purdue would win this game off of a field goal made by Mitchell Finneran from 39 yards out. On the losing end of this matchup, the Tennessee Volunteers were led by their starting quarterback, Hendon Hooker. He threw for 378 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also ran for 59 yards. That would combine for 437 total yards of offense, along with his 5 touchdowns. Tennessee's leading rusher was Jabari Small. He had 26 carries for 180 yards and a touchdown. He would also go on to finish with 2 receiving yards. He had 182 total yards of offense. Tennessee's leading receiver was Cedric Tillman. He had 7 receptions for 150 yards and 3 of the team's 5 receiving touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Velus Jones Jr., had 10 receptions for 85 yards as he had a touchdown himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Tennessee's leading tackler and the game's leading tackler was Jeremy Banks. He finished with 20 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. And then the team would have 3 interceptions from Byron Young, Trayvon Flowers, and Kamal Haddon. On the winning end of this matchup, the Purdue Boilermakers were led by their starting quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. He threw for 534 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Their leading rusher, Xander Horvath, had 17 carries for 58 yards, and he also had 21 yards through the air. That would combine for 79 total yards of offense. Purdue's leading receiver, Brock Thompson, had 7 receptions for 217 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Payne Durham had 5 receptions for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their 4th leading receiver, TJ Sheffield, had 3 receptions for 61 yards, and he had the 5th receiving touchdown of the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Alexander led the team in tackles as he had 19 of them. Chris Jefferson had 15 tackles. Kieran Douglas had 14 tackles, and Jalen Graham had 12. With this win, the unranked Purdue Boilermakers out of the Big Ten will finish with a 9-4 record. And, of course, with this loss, the unranked Tennessee Volunteers out of the SEC will finish with a 7-6 record. Last but not least, taking a look at what went down in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl. Wisconsin, the unranked Badgers out of the Big Ten, would go on to beat the unranked Arizona State Sun Devils out of the Pac-12. Wisconsin won this matchup 20-13 as they scored all 20 of their points in the first half, outscoring Arizona State 20-6 in the first half. Arizona shut Wisconsin out 7-0 in the second half, but it wouldn't be enough. On the losing end, the Sun Devils were led in scoring by their starting quarterback, Jaden Daniels. He threw for 159 yards, and he would throw for an interception. He also was the team's leading rusher as he had 40 yards on the ground. He had 199 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Arizona State's leading tackler was Tamarcus Davis. He had 9 tackles on the day. He also had the team's lone interception. On the winning end, the Badgers were led by their starting quarterback, Graham Mertz. He threw for 137 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Their leading rusher, Braylon Allen, had 29 carries for 159 yards. He also had 2 receiving yards. That's 161 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Leo Chenal led Wisconsin in tackles as he had 9 of them. He had a sack. Nick Herbig finished with 7 tackles as he had 2 sacks. Jack Sanborn finished with 3 tackles as he had a sack and a half. And John Torchio would finish with the team's lone interception. With this win, the unranked Wisconsin Badgers are now 9-4. With this loss, the unranked Arizona State Sun Devils are now 8-5. Taking a look now at what went down in the realm of college basketball, but I guess there were 3 games scheduled for ranked matchups, but all of those games did end up getting postponed. Taking a look at what went down in the NBA, starting off in Brooklyn, the Nets hosted the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers would end up beating the Nets 110-102. They would win this matchup by 10 after they outscored the Nets by 8 in the first quarter and by 7 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Brooklyn Nets were led in scoring by their goated starting power forward, Kevin Durant, and their elite starting shooting guard, James Hardin. Durant finished with 33 points and 6 rebounds, as well as 4 assists in 38 minutes. He shot 13 for 24 from the field. He shot 3 for 8 from 3, and he shot 4 for 6 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard, James Hardin, finished with 33 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, and 6 turnovers in 40 minutes. He shot 9 for 20 from the field. He would go on to shoot 1 for 5 from 3, and he shot 14 for 18 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers were led in scoring by their elite starting center out of Kansas, Joel Embiid. Embiid finished with 34 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 steals in 32 minutes. He shot 11 for 23 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and he shot 9 for 12 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, Tyrese Maxey, finished with 25 points and 7 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 10 for 18 from the field and 5 for 8 from 3. With this win, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 19-16 on the year. With this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 23-10. Jumping down to Orlando, the Magic hosted the defending champs, Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks would end up beating the Magic 136-118. The Magic won this matchup by 18 after they outscored the Magic by a combined 12 in the first half and by 7 in the fourth. On the losing end of this matchup, the Orlando Magic were led in scoring by their rookie starting small forward, Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner would finish with 20 points in 34 minutes. He shot 6 for 12 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Milwaukee Bucks were led in scoring by their elite starting power forward, the reigning NBA Finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He finished with 33 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 31 minutes. He shot 13 for 22 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting point guard out of UCLA, Drew Holiday, would finish with 25 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in 33 minutes. He shot 8 for 11 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting small forward, Chris Middleton, would finish with 22 points and 6 assists in 33 minutes. He shot 6 for 15 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 24-13, and with this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 7-29. Jumping out to our nation's capital, last but not least, the Wizards hosted the Cavaliers. The Wizards would end up beating the Cavaliers 110-93. As the Wizards would go on to win this matchup by 17 after they outscored the Cleveland Cavaliers by a combined 18 points in the middle 2 quarters. On the losing end of this matchup, the Cavs were led in scoring by their starting power forward out of UCLA, Kevin Love. Love finished with 24 points and 11 rebounds in 29 minutes. He shot 7 for 15 from the field, 4 for 10 from 3, and 6 for 8 from the foul line. And, of course, their starting center, their rookie Evan Mobley, would finish with 21 points and 5 rebounds, as well as 2 blocks in 32 minutes. Mobley shot 10 for 20 from the field and 1 for 2 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the Wizards were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Florida, Bradley Beal. Beal finished with 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 10 assists in 34 minutes. He would go on to shoot 13 for 23 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the day. And, of course, their starting small forward, the former champ, Kyle Kuzma, would go on to finish with 25 points and 10 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 11 for 17 from the field, and with this win, the Washington Wizards are now 18-17. With this loss, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 20-15. Taking a look at what went down in the world of soccer, especially yesterday, and starting off in the Premier League, Manchester United hosted Burnley and was able to get a 3-1 win as they scored all 3 of their goals in the first half. Their third goal coming from their goated Portuguese forward, Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, those are the big matches from yesterday that I have for you. I want to thank you once again for following me through the world of sports one day at a time. I want to thank the ESPN website as well as the NCAA, NFL, NBA, and FIFA websites for giving me all the facts and figures that I needed. As it pertains to the players, I apologize if I butchered your name. I do hopefully plan on getting them right one day. And with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 14 and 15 minutes of this piece. I really hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode tomorrow as we move into a new year. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following along for 2021. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode right after this. Peace out.